Alright, in this lesson we are going to convert polar to rectangular coordinates, and then we'll also convert rectangular to polar equations. And we need to review that sine theta is y over r, and that means that r sine theta equals y. And there's a conversion that goes from polar to rectangular. Here we have r cosine theta is x. X equals r cosine theta. And if we had this triangle, tan theta is y over x, well that means that theta is going to be inverse tangent of y over x. And we also have this relation with the Pythagorean theorem, so we can connect radius to an x and a y with the Pythagorean theorem. So let's look at this question. Convert the polar coordinate to rectangular coordinates. And to do that, we just have to find x and y, and here are the formulas for x and y. So the formula for x is r cosine theta. And we have y equals r sine theta. So r is negative 6, cosine of negative 120. We just evaluate that and we have the x value. Cosine of negative 120 looking down here, we are going to go there, that's negative 120. We have a special triangle, and the cosine is negative 1 over 2, and that equals 3. So let's do the y value is r sine negative 120 and the sine is negative radical 3 over 2. We could reduce that, we get a positive 3 radical 3. So the x, y coordinates are going to be 3 and 3 radical 3. Let's see how that looks. If we graph negative 6, negative 120, does it look like these are the right coordinates? So we're going to rotate to negative 120 and then go have a negative radius. So we rotate to negative 120. And then we'll reflect, and the point will be up there, with this being 6. And that means, does it look like these are reasonable to have an x value of 3 with a y value of 3 radical 3? Yeah, it looks reasonable. Alright, pause the video and try that one. So let's look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pi over 4. So x is 5 times the cosine of this, and that is negative 1 over radical 2. Y is 5 times the sine of that, which would be negative 1 over radical 2. And we can rewrite that as negative 5 radical 2 over 2 and negative 5 radical 2 over 2. If we graph this, rotating 5 pi over 4, then we would be down here with a radius of 5. And so this says we're going to go negative 5 radical 2 over 2, down 5 radical 2 over 2, and that looks reasonable. All right. So if we're if we have x and y and we want to find r and theta, well, let's see how can we find r, and then how can we find theta. We need a formula for r. We have x and y, we need r. So what formula is going to give us x, y, and r, or relate x, y, and r? And that's the one we need, the Pythagorean theorem. Then we need to find theta. How do we find theta if we have x and y? And that requires us using this, a formula that has a theta with y and x. That's the formula we'll use for theta. So to find r, we have x squared plus y squared equals r squared. And x, y equals r squared. Then we just solve for r squared. 64 plus 100, 164. So r is the square root of 164. This is 4 times 41, 2 radical 41. Find theta. We want to find theta, and that means we have tan theta is 10 over 8. So theta is inverse tan 10 over 8. And the calculator would give us 51.34 degrees. So in polar coordinates, r and theta, we have 2 radical 41, 51.34 degrees. Pause the video and try that one. And then theta, we can just go right to inverse tangent Oh, we have to be careful here with the inverse tangent. So let's look at the graph. If we go, this is not going to change anything so far, but I forgot to write a negative there. So I just want to do that to make this easier for me to do, but that's all you have to change is the negative there. And when we do inverse tangent, we will always get a number between negative 90 and positive 90, and here we get 23.962. But we can see that this is not 23.962. We need to go, if we did 23.962, that would be right there. So one of the possible coordinates would be negative radical 97, 23.962 degrees. The point is there, so we can't just say 23 degrees and radical 97. That would be up there. So we have to rotate. If we rotate 23, then we have to go to a negative radical 97 to end where we need to end. The other option is we could rotate all the way over there and then go with a positive radical 97. And since that is a straight line, that's 23.962. We're going to add 180, and it'll take us there with a positive radius. And I forgot to do the other polar coordinate here. So if we have the points 8, 10, the point is at 8, 10. By rotating 51 degrees with a positive radius, it takes us right there. Well, we could also go another 180 and then with a negative radius. So if I have a negative radius and then 51.34 plus 180, that would be another pair of polar coordinates, because we're going to rotate all the way over there and then reflect back instead of just stopping at 51 and going out with a positive radius. We wouldn't leave it like that. We can write it as 231.34. And this one would be 203.962. So we have, there's one answer, and there's the other answer. Okay, let's just review the graphs of these equations. If x is constant, we have a vertical line. If y is constant, we have a horizontal line. And this x squared plus y squared equals c squared gives us a circle. And then y equals x squared is a parabola. We're going to need this for the next questions. All right. I will. Well, this one looks harder, but this one is a little tricky. X equals -2. So we identify x equals a constant as a vertical line, and then we just substitute with the formulas from the beginning. We have these options. When we see an x, we can put r cosine theta. When we see a y, we can put r sine theta. And if we ever saw y over x, we can replace it with tan theta. When we see x squared plus y squared, we can put r squared. So here we have all x and y, and we're going to replace it with r and theta. So x is going to be r cosine theta equals -2. So r is -2 over cosine theta. Well, I guess that wasn't very tricky. All right. So then we're going to look at this one. You try this one, and let's go ahead and replace the x and the y. Pause. Let's see. Yeah, go ahead and just pause the video and try that. So x equals r cosine theta minus 2 squared. Oh, yeah, that's right. And then we're going to have y equals r sine theta squared. So if we don't just square this and square that, we have to square this And then we're going to have 2 times that, and then that times 2, so we get negative 4r cosine theta plus 4. This is r squared sine squared theta. And we want to get r by itself. Here we have cosine squared and sine squared. So if we put those together, we're going to eventually get a 1. And let's go ahead and subtract this. And then we're going to group the cosine squared and the sine squared. So I took that and put it right there. That's gone. So I subtracted 4. I moved this right here, and I just rewrote that right there. Now when we can factor out the r squared, and we get cosine squared plus sine squared. Let's move that over to the other side. That equals 1. That's a Pythagorean identity, and we get r squared equals 4r cosine theta. So r equals 4 cosine theta. And we saw that in a previous lesson. That's the equation of a circle. So we know that that's a circle. And there's that equation that we worked with. Okay, pause the video and write that in polar form. Well, when we see a y, we can put r sine theta. And when we see an x, we can put r cosine theta. Here we have, we want to get r by itself, so we can divide by r. And then we get r by itself, and we'll have divide by 2 cosine squared. Now we have a polar equation, and I did not identify the type of equation. It did say identify the type of equation. It's a parabola. And on the previous page, we have a vertical line. And here we had a circle. Alright, pause the video and try that one. So x is r cosine theta. Y is r sine theta. R squared cosine squared. R squared sine squared minus 6r sine plus 9. Here we have r cosine squared, r squared sine squared, so it's r squared cosine squared plus sine squared. And let's just move this over. So that'll be 9. 9 minus 9 is 0, and then we're going to add the 6r sine theta. 6r sine theta over nothing. Well, that's 1 there, so why don't we just divide by r, and we get 6 sine theta. which is the equation of a circle in polar form. Now let's do one more. Alright, convert that to polar form, and we know that that is a parabola. Pause the video and try that. X is r cosine theta, y is r sine theta, and we want to get r by itself. Why don't we divide by r? And then we'll divide by 2 sine squared. So cosine over 2 sine squared theta is r, and that will be the equation of a parabola in polar form. We'll stop there.